Hey, it's Chris here, and welcome back to another vlog. Now, in the last one, I talked a bit about my hackathon lessons learned and about the next steps for the Better Day app, which is the one I built for the hackathon. Now, in between that time till now, I've been educating myself on indie app development, and I feel like I have a lot of cool things I want to share with you, and that's why I recorded this vlog. So let me walk through this. And I wrote this in the context of I was just jotting down my thoughts and my notes and what I've learned into an indie app program outline because that's what I'm trying to build for a CWC Plus program. But keep in mind, caveat is that all of this is theory. I am curating the experiences of other people that have done it before. So I'm very careful about who I'm getting this information from. But then I have yet to put this into practice, right? I'm running this information through with you now. I'm going to put it into practice with my hackathon app, and then I can actually have a real life case study of how well these things work. Okay, so this is my process so far, thinking about how to launch future app ideas. And I think this would be useful for you. So app idea validation. So it starts with the app idea, right? So I think if our goal is to make money, then we need users to pay for the app. And the only reason they would download our app, well, search for it, download it, pay for it, the only reason they do that is because it solves an actual problem that they have. So it's really tough to make money if you have either like a very small problem. Let me rephrase that. If you have a problem that very few people have, very, very specific problem, then your market size is very small. At the same time, if you have a giant market size, you're going to be competing with most of the big apps. So I think you have to pick a problem that's a real problem. The more painful it is, the better. Your app actually has to make that problem better. It doesn't have to completely solve it, but I think it has to make it easier to solve or solve it a bit, make it better, right? And it can't be too small of a problem and it can't be too big of a problem. But the key thing is that we have to be specific about what we're trying to solve. Okay, so it's very tough to build a generic, what do you call it? To-do list, habit tracker. Those are the types of stuff I like to do demos on because they're simple as well, right? But if you're actually trying to make money, then it better solve some real problem, some real pain point that people are having. But be specific. Be like, my app helps you with this problem, and here's how it does. Either makes it easier to solve or it actually solves it. Okay. So that's the only way you're going to be able to be specific about the value that your app provides and who you're targeting, right? So you're very clear on the audience that you would pay for your app. And if you have that specific customer profile, you're going to be able to speak their language. You're going to be able to know where they hang out. You're going to be able to understand them. And, this is all marketing stuff that I'm getting into. So those are two important points. Now, after you've come up with this problem and an app idea that solves that problem, you have to validate that A, there are people who have this problem. B, those people would find this app helpful. If it does exist, then hopefully they would pay for it. There's only so much you can do before you actually put it on the market. Publish the app live. You can talk to people, right? You can join the community forums. You can look on Google Trends to see if it's actually a problem that is trending up so that you're not building for a shrinking audience, right? Or a shrinking industry. But all of that, you can do all of those things and it might give you confidence. But where the rubber really meets the road is when you actually launch the app and you're actually asking people for money. Because that's when that's what counts. That's at the end of the day, that's the real test is if someone can pay for it, are they going to pay for it? Have they actually transacted? And you want to spend as little time and money as possible to find out. So this is, I guess, in startup world, they call this product market fit, where, you're trying to find something that aligns with the market's needs. And so that's why we build an MVP, minimum viable product. So the smallest app that you can build, the fastest, that would still serve, the core feature of the app so that you can test your theory that someone would pay for this. Okay, so we get to MVP stage now. So you want to build the core feature. And this is what really helped for me. This is what I learned from the hackathon, is to set a short time frame to launch it. Don't set like months and blah, blah, blah to make it perfect. Just launch it. And when you launch it, there are features that you want to have as part of your MVP. But instead of just telling you those features, I want to go through the rest of it and present problems and talk about solutions so that you have context as to why we need these features before launch. Okay, so I'm going to go down this list and then come back and say, that's why we need this for the MVP. And you can use AI to speed up this development process. Okay, now, once the app is launched, so let's say you got your MVP, you launched it. Once it's launched, we need to test the app. We need to find this product market fit. We would need to see if people will actually pay for the app. But in order to find that out, right, we need users. We need people to actually download. Well, first of all, be able to discover our app. Second of all, be convinced that this app will solve their problem, and then download the app, and then be convinced enough going through the app that they would pay for it, give us their money. And that's how we would prove that, well, hey, this app actually works. Perhaps we can scale it up, put in more effort, add more features, that sort of thing. Okay, but how do we get users? There are several different ways. So App Store optimization is one way. And this is where people search would punch in some sort of keyword or search phrase into the App Store, and your app would come up. And you try to target this keyword so that your app shows up through a whole bunch of different means, such as putting your, that keyword in the title of your app, putting it in the subtitle, and putting it in your screenshots and things like that. Basically optimizing your app's metadata around that keyword. In terms of what keywords to use, like which ones you should target, and in terms of the actual process of optimizing your app for a certain keyword, I am going to send you over to here, tryastro.app/books. These are some free ebooks in exchange for your email. These are written by Matteo, and it is a wealth of information for those topics. I don't get anything from this. I think you basically get signed up to his email list and you get to download these books and read them. So that's a great way to learn for free. Okay, but coming back to this, people find our app in the search results, but not only that, even if our app shows up number one, it needs to look convincing enough that it would solve their problem for the user to click on the listing and download it, right? And how do you convince the user? Well, several ways, right? App rating, right? If you got a 5.0 star rating out of 5,000 reviews, that's a really good sign. So a number of ratings, as well as how good your ratings are out of 5, and the screenshots. So those are super duper important. Your screenshots need to communicate that your app is of quality, and it needs to communicate that it is exactly what they're looking for when they search that. So this is be enticed enough to download the app based on the app listing. Okay, so that's one way to get users. Okay, they're going to download it and they're going to launch your app. Let's talk about some other ways. Some other ways, you do manual marketing. So this manual marketing is basically when you go on forums and you recommend your app to people, or you're talking to people on the street, or you're telling your friends and family, basically your manual effort to pitch your app. And I'll say you have to be careful about pitching your app in forums and public places and stuff like that. Not public places, but I mean on different platforms, because self-promotion is a no-no usually. And so you got to be a little bit more subtle than that. But essentially, you're going to be sending people a link to your app listing, and your arguments or whatever you posted to do the manual marketing. Maybe it's like content marketing where you're posting social media posts. Maybe you're posting TikTok videos and Instagram reels, whatever. That content needs to be convincing enough, plus the app listing, because when they click on the link to go to the app listing, they're going to see that as well. So your marketing material and the app listing needs to be enticing enough for them to download the app, and then they're going to launch it and use your app. That's another way. And then the last way is paid marketing. And again, this is kind of like manual marketing, in the sense that if you're posting content to the ad platform, so if it's a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad, a TikTok ad, a YouTube ad, whatever it may be, like that marketing material plus the app listing needs to be enticing enough. The user needs to be convinced enough that your app is going to solve their problem. Then they're going to go and download the app. Okay, so that's solved. Oh, some other points. So paid marketing is expensive at this point. So you don't really want to go this route yet unless you have money. So if you have money, this is the fastest way to test it, right? Like this one, you kind of have to wait. This one is like a manual effort. If you pay to get users to download your app, you're going to find out if you have product market fit, if your app idea is valid. You're going to find that out real quick, but it costs money. So I think for the majority of us, if this is one of our first apps, we haven't really built up a war chest yet with money that we can move that fast. I would recommend we stick with ASO and manual marketing in order to get those first users to test our app with. Okay, so ASO happens before launch. So that is one of the things that you need to do as part of the MVP before you launch it. And so, for example, ASO. Okay. Now, what happens? And then as for manual marketing, we'll revisit this later in the process, but that's part of, these are the different modules. So I'm going through the process with you right now that I've formulated from all of my learning. And I am going to deep dive into each of these parts in separate modules in this program that I'm creating. So manual marketing will be like module 8. Okay, so once the user has downloaded your app through these initial means, that doesn't mean anything just yet. That doesn't mean that you've proven your app works because they haven't given you money. And this is where actions speak louder than words. Okay, once your app is downloaded, what do we want to know? Well, we want to know if they're going to actually pay for it. So how are we going to get the data that we need? First of all, we have to have a way for the user to give us money, right? Because that speaks volumes that this market is hungry for a solution to a problem that your app solves. In order for them to pay you, we need some sort of in-app purchase, right? So this was something that I didn't think before. I was always thinking, oh, I'm going to launch my app for free, get users, and then introduce in-app purchases. But the problem with that approach is that you will never know if the people you're serving, the problem that your app is solving, is a painful enough problem that you can monetize, right? You might get users using your app, but maybe it's not useful enough that they would pay you, or the problem that your app solves is not a big enough problem that people would pay money for. So adding an in-app purchase right off the bat helps you get that validation faster, so you just don't waste more time and effort. Okay, so in order to have an in-app purchase, you also need a paywall. Okay, so this is where something like Revenue Cat or Superwall, there was another one. Oh, I forget. This is a smaller indie app developer that created this competing product for paywalls and in-app purchases. I forget, but maybe I'll comment below when I think about it. Okay, so you need a paywall. The other interesting fact, and I'm just quoting here because I don't know where it's from, but I've heard a couple of these different sources that I'm learning from say this, that 80% of purchasers come from the onboarding sequence. Think about that, 80%. That's the vast majority of people who are paying for your app. They make that purchase through the onboarding process, right? So you're going to want to put that onboarding process. And then at the end of the onboarding process, that's where you put the paywall. And this onboarding process is a chance for you to convince the user that your app is helpful, walk them through how your app is going to help them. And then they're going to, when they get to the paywall, decide whether they want to perhaps start a trial with you or they want to pay for your app or whatnot. And your app actually has to be good, right? If you promise a ton of stuff in the onboarding sequence and your app doesn't deliver, at the end of the day, you probably get a lot of refund requests, and then Apple will probably dock marks off your app ranking because of that. So you actually want to make sure that your app does what it says. Okay, so now we've got a whole bunch of features that we need before we launch. And you also know the reasons why. But here, so the app download, that's what I talked about, onboarding, paywall, analytics, something that I plan to use telemetry deck for. This is a free tier analytics platform. Dived a little deeper into it, and it's really cool because it's very easy to set up. It integrates with RevenueCat really nicely, and you can splice and dice the data, creating your own insights and dashboards really, really easily through a drag and drop interface. And I'll show you that maybe in a future video. But then you can create these funnels and you can see where people drop off on your onboarding sequence. And plus, because it integrates with RevenueCat, you can see how different actions in your app results in more revenue, perhaps, something like that. So that's what I would use for analytics. And in terms of feedback and talking to users, this is really important because you're looking at your data points here and you're looking at revenue data here, but nothing beats actually talking to people, right? You get to hear the language that they use. Perhaps you get a testimonial out of it. Perhaps you understand what's important to the user straight from the horse's mouth. So a couple of ways to do this. There is something called WishKit, which is built by my friend Martin. This is really cool because it's a voting feature. So you know what features to build, like what features do people value for your app, not just wasting time building features that no one wants. But talking to your users, right? This can be done through, there is a Crisp, which is actually what I use for my business in terms of live chat. You don't actually have to have live chat. It's a way for people to send messages through a chat interface. I don't want to launch this now because I was talking to them. But then it appears in your inbox and then you can reply and you can have like a messaging and asynchronous messaging with a user. And then maybe you can invite them to a Zoom where you actually talk face to face. So that's one way to talk to your users. Now, one thing I didn't realize is the importance of testing. Because after you get this data, analytics, the revenue data, like how people are using your app, the revenue data, and also the qualitative feedback in talking to people, you begin to hypothesize and you have ideas like, okay, based on all of this, I think that if I changed this little part in the onboarding process, it would make things a lot more clear to the user about how to use our app. Or maybe it would make it so much more clear the value that our app has to offer, that sort of thing, right? So then what you do is you create a test and you test your existing paywall or onboarding process versus like your new one based off of your hypothesis. And then you look at the results and then you pick the winning one, obviously, and then you continually refine it like that. And there's so many things that you can test and refine. So for example, screenshots, we talked about how important that was for someone seeing your app listing and actually being convinced to download it. So that is, you're trying to improve your conversion rate from an impression, that means that someone's seeing your app listing, to an actual download and install, right? If you improve that rate, that's good. There is optimizing and testing the onboarding and paywall, and then like these two things, and that would improve the conversion from an install to a trial start or a sale. Trial start means if you have a trial for your subscription, that they start the trial. And that conversion rate helps you make more money. So you can think of it as how users come into giving you money, to the point of giving you money. It's like first they have to discover your app and then they have to be convinced to download it. And then once they download it, they have to be convinced in the onboarding sequence enough to pay for your app. So there's a whole bunch of things along that chain that you can test and optimize. So one more thing is the app icon. Yeah. Okay, so that is going to give you data and give you validation that like this app is working, that it can be scaled up, and that you should put more effort into it. Yeah, and over time, how do you get more traffic and more users? How do you scale up? You improve things slowly. Okay. Wait for ASO to kick in because ASO, store optimization, doesn't happen overnight. So you might, if you're targeting a specific keyword, you might rank a little lower, but through things like good ratings and reviews, frequent app updates, because that helps improve your rankings. It lets Apple know that there is an active developer working on this and you're not just going to let it like peter out. Keyword specific conversions, which means that someone actually uses that keyword that you're targeting to search in the App Store and then they choose to download your app in the search results. That's a huge signal to Apple to be like, we should boost this app higher for that keyword because it's giving signals to Apple that your app is relevant for the keyword. And then there's other things as well, which I'll get into in module 4, or you can learn about in the book series that I showed you here. Link in the description below. Okay, so then once you rank well for your target keyword, you then optimize and target another keyword by changing the words in your app title and your app subtitle and your description and your screenshots. But don't worry, when you change those things, you're not going to lose your rankings for the first keyword you targeted because you've already given Apple signals that your app is relevant for the first set of keywords that you were targeting. Right? It's already got this data. Like, even though you're removing those keywords from your app title and subtitle and all that stuff, we've got the data to prove that when people search for that first keyword, they download your app and they stay for a long time. And that's another signal, is that actually when a user searches for that keyword, chooses to download your app, that's good, but stays and uses your app because Apple does have that data, like how many times your app is launched, how long people stay using your app, that sort of thing. It has that data. And if users stay a long time after going through that process we just described, then that means your app is highly relevant for that keyword that you were targeting. Right? So after you get the rankings for their first set of keywords, you're going to target a second set of keywords, but you will maintain the traffic and the users and your rankings for the first set. At least that's how I understand it right now. And so that's how slowly over time, you're going to be building up more and more organic traffic to your app listing. And of course, there's other ways to scale because manual marketing, what happens is just like with Code with Chris, I didn't publish all of my videos and all of my articles overnight, right? It took a series of 10 years of building that catalog of content up. But that catalog of content continues to work for me and brings in new visitors and things like that. So that's what's going to happen for your app as well. As it gets in the news, as people know about it, as word of mouth gets around, as it gets mentioned in like certain blogs that's about the problem that your app solves, it's going to build up that search traffic or organic traffic. And then there's paid marketing, which is easy to understand, right? You just put in more money. It's not that easy, to be honest, because what I hear about is that when you put in more money, your results actually go down, and it's not as easy as just pouring in more money. But you kind of get the idea. Perhaps you have to scale breadth-wise and target different, just start more different campaigns. But essentially pouring more money and investing more into paid marketing allows you to scale up. Okay, so that's what I said. This is how I understand the process right now from what I have gathered, what I've been learning. I still have a lot to learn, I think, and I'll continue to refine this, but I'm comfortable with what I know now in order to apply it to my app so that I can actually have some real case studies putting this into action and seeing it for myself. So in the next vlog, I'll talk about how I'm going to apply these ideas to my hackathon app, Better Day, or perhaps a new app. But I don't want to start a new app yet. I want to see how far I can take this app. And at the very least, if after I implement these things that we talked about, and I'm still not getting the validation with the purchases and that I'm solving an actual problem that people have, then perhaps I'll think about a different app. Too bad I didn't know this stuff when I was building that app and selecting that app idea. If you go back in the hackathon, you'll actually see I had a really hard time selecting an idea. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you. Again, take this with a grain of salt because this is all just data I've curated. Sorry, not data, but like expertise and knowledge that I've curated from other sources. I have yet to put it into action for myself. But I hope that it's helpful for you because I know it was helpful for me in understanding how this game is played in the app development, making money from the App Store. A lot of this stuff I did not know before. It has nothing to do with app development, really. Okay, I'll see you in the next vlog.